The kingdom of Mbazi had stood for centuries, nestled in the heart of the African continent. Its people were known for their strength, wisdom, and deep connection to the land. At its helm was King Adisa, a man revered for his fairness and compassion. King Adisa had ruled for 20 years, guiding his people through times of plenty and hardship alike. The kingdom prospered under his leadership, its fields fertile and its people content. But as the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. It began with whispers in the marketplace. Strange happenings were afoot in the kingdom. Crops withered overnight, livestock fell ill without cause, and an unseasonable chill hung in the air. At first, King Adisa dismissed these reports as simple misfortune, but as the days wore on, he could no longer ignore the growing unease among his subjects. One morning, a group of village elders came to the palace, their faces etched with worry. They spoke of dark magic creeping across the land, of shadows that moved on their own, and of eerie voices carried on the wind. King Adisa listened carefully, his brow furrowed with concern. "We fear a great evil has come to Mbazi, Your Majesty," said the eldest of the group, his voice quavering. "Our people are afraid." King Adisa nodded solemnly. "I hear your concerns, and I will not rest until we uncover the source of these disturbances." But even as he spoke these words, doubt gnawed at the king's heart. He had always relied on wisdom and diplomacy to solve problems. Magic, if it truly existed, was beyond his understanding. That night, as King Adisa lay in his bed, a cold wind swept through the palace. He sat up, startled by a faint whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Your time is ending, King of Mbazi," the voice hissed. "Your kingdom will soon be mine." Adisa leapt from his bed, calling for his guards, but when they arrived, they found nothing amiss. The king described what he had heard, but he could see the doubt in their eyes. Was he losing his mind? Over the next few weeks, things went from bad to worse. The mysterious ailments spreading through the kingdom intensified. People began to disappear, only to return days later with no memory of where they had been. And always, there were the whispers in the night, taunting the king and promising his downfall. Desperate for answers, King Adisa sent word to neighboring kingdoms, seeking any who might have knowledge of such dark forces. His messengers returned with tales of a powerful sorcerer who had been causing chaos across the land. They called him Azibo, the Shadowmancer, and it was said that he drew his power from the fears and doubts of those around him. Armed with this knowledge, King Adisa called together his most trusted advisors. "We must find a way to stop this sorcerer," he declared. "Our kingdom depends on it." But even as they began to form a plan, strange events continued to plague the palace. The king's food turned to ash in his mouth. His dreams were filled with terrifying visions of his kingdom in ruins. And each morning, he awoke to find another of his loyal subjects had turned against him, their eyes glazed over as if in a trance. As fear gripped the kingdom, people began to question their leader. Whispers of the king's weakness spread like wildfire. Some even suggested that perhaps Azibo would be a stronger ruler, one who could protect them from the evils that seemed to lurk around every corner. King Adisa felt his control slipping away. He knew he had to act fast if he wanted to save his kingdom and his people. But how could he fight an enemy he couldn't see? It was then that an unexpected ally emerged. A young woman named Zuri approached the palace gates, claiming to have information about Azibo. The guards, wary of strangers, almost turned her away, but something in her eyes caught their attention, and they brought her before the king. Zuri revealed that she was a former apprentice of Azibo. She had fled his service when she realized the true extent of his evil. "He feeds on fear and doubt," she explained. "The more afraid people are, the stronger he becomes." This revelation hit King Adisa like a thunderbolt. He realized that by giving in to his own fears, he had been making Azibo stronger all along. But Zuri wasn't finished. She leaned in close, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's more, Your Majesty. Azibo. He's your brother." The king staggered back, his mind reeling. It couldn't be true. And yet memories long buried began to surface. A younger brother, sent away as a child due to his dangerous fascination with dark magic. Could it really be him? With this new information, King Adisa knew what he had to do. He called for a grand gathering of all his people. Standing before them, he spoke with a strength and conviction that had been missing in recent weeks. "People of Mbazi," he began, his voice ringing out across the crowd. "We have been under attack, not by an outside force, but by our own fears and doubts. The sorcerer who plagues us feeds on these emotions. But we are stronger than our fears. We are Mbazi, and we will not be defeated by shadows and whispers." As he spoke, a change came over the crowd. People stood taller, their eyes shining with renewed hope. King Adisa could almost feel the tide turning. But Azibo was not about to give up so easily. As the king's speech reached its climax, the sky darkened. A whirlwind appeared in the center of the gathering, and from it stepped a figure cloaked in shadows. "So, brother," Azibo's voice slithered through the air, "you think you can turn them against me so easily?" The crowd gasped, looking between the two men. The family resemblance was clear now that they stood face to face. King Adisa stepped forward, his voice steady. "I'm not turning them against you, Azibo. I'm reminding them of who they are, who we all are." Azibo laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers through the crowd. "And who are we, brother? A king who cowers in his palace and a sorcerer who was cast out. Perhaps it's time for a new order in Mbazi." With a wave of his hand, Azibo sent a blast of dark energy towards the king. But to everyone's surprise, the attack dissipated before it reached Adisa. The king stood firm, a soft light seeming to emanate from within him. "Your power comes from fear, brother, but there is something stronger than fear. The love I have for my people, and the love they have for each other and this land." As he spoke, the people of Mbazi began to join hands. Parents hugged their children, friends embraced, and even strangers reached out to one another. A warm glow spread through the crowd, pushing back the shadows that surrounded Azibo. The sorcerer's eyes widened in disbelief. "No, this isn't possible." But it was. As the light grew stronger, Azibo's form began to waver, like a mirage in the desert. He lashed out with his magic, but each attack was weaker than the last. King Adisa approached his brother, his hand outstretched. "It's over, Azibo, but it doesn't have to end this way. Come back to us. Come home." For a moment, the hatred in Azibo's eyes flickered, replaced by a glimpse of the young boy he had once been. But then the moment passed, and with a howl of rage, he vanished in a cloud of dark smoke. As the shadows dissipated, a cheer went up from the crowd. The air felt clearer, the sun brighter. The nightmare was over. In the days that followed, the kingdom of Mbazi began to heal. Crops flourished once more, and the mysterious illnesses that had plagued the people faded away. King Adisa, with Zuri as his new advisor, led his people into a new era of prosperity. But the king never forgot the lesson he had learned. He kept a watchful eye on the horizon, knowing that his brother might one day return, and he made sure to remind his people often of the strength they held when they stood together. As for Azibo, some say he fled to distant lands to nurse his wounds and plot his revenge. Others believe he was destroyed by his own dark magic. But there were a few who swore they had seen a figure watching the kingdom from afar, a look of longing in his eyes. In the end, the tale of the African king who almost lost his kingdom to a sorcerer became a legend in Mbazi. It was a reminder that true strength comes not from fear and domination, but from love, unity, and the courage to face one's own doubts. And so, the kingdom of Mbazi continued, stronger than ever before, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring.